Good morning and welcome to the Falcons Podcast. We are live on YouTube, but we're going to bring in our Atlanta Falcons fans group on Facebook and Scott Kennedy Sports on Facebook. Get those going and we'll be ready to go. We got a great show ready for you today with all of the different options the Atlanta Falcons have. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. I am your host, Scott Kennedy, along with my co-host over on this side, Nick Kendall. I'm in Atlanta. He's in Seattle, so he gets up bright and early, and we are coast to coast with your Atlanta Falcons talk today. Nick, how are you doing this morning?
I am doing well. No sleep is just, the theme these days, so that's okay. I'm just making do with it. The night is over. I'm here. I got my coffee, and I'm excited to talk ball. And we're really in the fun part of the draft. I mean, the combine's come and gone. I guess that's a downer that's over because that's always a lot of fun. But just all the avenues, and it is mock drafts. It's fan fiction sometimes, somewhat, but just the possibilities are all out there right now, and there's so many pathways forward to get into. So excited to talk ball and see what this Falcons team is going to do that has, as Raheem Morris mentioned multiple times, so many paths forward this offseason.
Yeah, there are a ton of options, including a trade-up option from The Athletic that we wrote about yesterday on all Falcons that we'll get into today. We go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on these channels. So if you're listening after the fact, come join us sometime. YouTube.com/Scott Kennedy is probably the best way to come find us. Easiest way to come find us. About dumped my coffee in my lap all over the place, and it's still full. That would have been bad. But we go live because we like having the conversation with folks like you, like Oblivion Empire coming in. He says, "Good morning, guys and Falcons fans. This is going to be a great show like always. Thank you, Scott and Nick, for bringing this awesome podcast to our fans." Well, thank you for being here. This show is really, the coaching change has been great for the Falcons podcast. It's grown exponentially over the last 3 or 4 months. I go and sorted, and when Nick and I first got started, we were lucky to have 100 views. But I believe in myself, and I believe in this guy over here. He's really good. I got 2 decades on him, but he's good, and hopefully that it's paying off for us. And we appreciate you being here. It says, "Good morning, Scott, Nick, and the family. If you had your pick of Kirk Cousins at $38 million, let's just call it $40 million, or Justin Fields for a second-round pick, who are you taking? And do you still draft Rattler or Milton after you take Turner and Pearsall and Fisk?"
I think it sounds like Justin Fields is going to be available for less than a second, Scott. It sounds like the market.
I'm rounding up. Yeah, I'm saying a second because, on the expensive side, just in case. I went on the expensive side.
It sounds like they're getting squeezed. We'll see. I mean, it is that type of year that could just be coming from teams like, oh, we won't pay it, and then somebody ends up paying it. But there's a lot of viable quarterback options and not as many seats to fill. Now, there's not a lot of great quarterbacks, but it's serviceable for sure. So I think that'll probably make the Justin Fields market dissipate a tad. Also, I guess teams are worried about the injuries. I mean, we went through it. I didn't know the injuries were as expansive, but once you look at the list, it's like, oh my God, this guy's missed and it's not just the same thing over and over. It's so many different injuries. But yeah, I guess I'm going to champion. I think Kirk Cousins would be awesome for the Falcons for where they're at right now. I know some in the chat don't agree with that, but that's okay. That's not offensive to me. And then also I'd probably take Rattler then next. But that said, I don't think you're going to be able to get Rattler, Turner, Pearsall, and Fisk. Although you do have, I guess you could walk out Turner, both Pearsall and Fisk round 2, and then Rattler round 3.
You didn't trade your second. You could absolutely come out of this with Dallas Turner, Ricky Pearsall, and Braden Fisk, especially if you pair together those 2 threes. If Ridley doesn't become a 2, you pair together those 2 threes and move up, you can absolutely get those 3 guys.
I think there is a chance that Pearsall and Fisk go before you pick round 2, and I think both those guys are going to be round 2 picks. So it depends, I guess, on that Calvin Ridley pick in the end, if it's a 3rd or a 2. But yeah, definitely there's going to be options there, both defensive line and wide receiver in the second or day 2 of the draft. I mean, besides Pearsall, you got Ladd McConkey out there. He's going to go pretty high. You still got Troy Franklin, who's fine. You got Roman Wilson, who's going to go somewhere in that range. He's really good too. Defensive line, Fisk is going to be good. You got Rook Orohoro, I just want to say the name, no other reason. No, he tested awesome out there at Clemson. Still pretty raw to the position, but he's a heck of an athlete, Scott. So there's definitely options. But if that worked out for you guys, that would be fantastic. That'd be a killer draft.
3-round mock. I'm looking at tankathon.com because they pick 43rd, 74, and 79 right now. And it's 8 Dallas Turner is what the overall mocks are. At 43, Bo Nix. That's a name we haven't really talked about a lot with the Falcons. It doesn't seem. Maybe we should.
That range.
Good comments coming in here. I'm going to come back to, but before I get too far into this, we're going to say hello to our benefactor, the Sunrise, Michael Ronquillo, coming in with a red hot super chat. I think he loves that red and black. He just loves it because he's coming in red hot all the time. He says, "Good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast." Michael, we had our best month ever with the Falcons podcast, and you were a big part of that in February. So thank you so much. Keeping Nick in diapers, keeping me in baseball bats, and all kinds of supporting our some of our bad habits, dirty habits like changing diapers and cleaning cleats and that kind of stuff. So it means a ton to us. We certainly appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.
We'll come back and we'll say thank you again before we get out of here for sure.
Yeah, thank you for keeping me in diapers.
Yeah, for keeping Nick in diapers. One of the things Mike Florio was on, what was it, the Pat McAfee show? Rusty Moore comes in and reminds us. He said Florio made a statement on the Pat McAfee show. There it is, saying that Kirk reached out to Kyle Pitts about the number 8. Kyle retweeted and basically said that's false. Florio is a lying clown. And that's where a lot of this Kirk Cousins is moving to Atlanta was coming from, was Pro Football Talk, which is NBC, which is Mike Florio, which came on the heels of Justin Fields jumping up and down because he was coming to the Atlanta Falcons, which then follows up with multiple drafts of the Falcons getting their quarterback in the draft, including Dane Brugler of The Athletic saying the Falcons. Did you see this trade, Nick? Did you see what it was?
It was big.
It was not big.
Oh.
It was trading up to number 3. That's big.
Yeah.
But it was number 12, number 43, and next year's first. That's it. If you can get me into the top 3 with 2 firsts and a second, I'm probably taking that.
I would assumed it would have cost you another 3 this year and 3 next year or something like that as well. So, yeah, I mean, I do remember that. I don't remember. It was the Dane Brugler mark because they also had a beat writer mock as well.
It was quoted. We've got it on all Falcons right now. Let me drop that. I don't plug the site enough. We haven't been as consistent in content in that as we've done doing our podcast. But Dave Holcomb had the write-up from Dane, and I was like, whoa. I was like, all right, how much did they give up to move up? And that doesn't seem like enough to me. I'm like, I think that deal would get beaten by somebody else, and if that's what they were getting, the Patriots would stay put and take like Marvin Harrison Jr. or something if they didn't want the quarterback.
Yeah. As far as Florio being a lying clown, it's the time of year where agents and different people are using the media to they're essentially chess pieces, right? To get narratives out there and to kind of change the market a bit. So I don't know necessarily if Florio's a lying clown, but maybe he got poor information that he should have double verified before putting it out there. But there's angles to all of this. You hear something from one side, it's going to be different from a team side, then it's going to be different from the agent side. So everything with a grain of salt this time of year. Don't trust anyone unless you come out right and like, this is what I heard. But I mean, it changes because nobody's dealing with all the puzzle pieces right now. But
yeah, and going back to John Harrell's, if you had your pick of Kirk or Justin, who would you take? I don't want $40 million of Kirk Cousins as one of my choices. That's down the list for me. That's the price tag and what it limits you. Knowing if I were to get a quarterback and I could still have the $40 million to spend in free agency, I'd be more interested in that. I'd rather have Danielle Hunter and Justin Fields and another $30 million in free agency money this year than I would Kirk Cousins. Just that's the way it is for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have Russell Wilson for free for $2 million than Kirk Cousins and 40. To me, we talk about economics and stuff and how, the money at the top. Well, that's how it works in an open market. You pay, it's an exponential curve. the higher you climb up, the steeper the curve gets on salary. Well, I don't see that exponential curve playing in the favor of the Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins. Yeah, he's better than Russell Wilson, but not 40 million to 2 million because you're getting a discount on Russell Wilson. And I don't know that he's definitely the intriguing one. The highest risk, actually not that high of a risk because it wouldn't cost you much in a draft, but the highest upside, lowest floor guy, I guess the biggest variance in there between play of what you could possibly get from me is still Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that is he could be really, really good or he could be just awful.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd be awful just because he runs the ball too well. You know what you're getting with the other veterans.
Yeah. The big thing with Fields is the injuries, right? Is he going to be able to even play 10 games? Going to have a thumb injury, a knee injury, a shoulder injury. I just don't know. I'm okay with spending Kirk Cousins that money just because I think this Falcons roster is pretty much ready to go, especially on the offensive side of the ball, especially when you're considering you have 4 top 100 picks this season as well. So you have the ability to really fill out the roster around him, and you plug in Cousins, and I think you are giddy up. Now, my best case scenario for the Falcons, which would be Drake May sliding in the draft to like number 5 overall, and then you trade up to number 5 and go get Drake May. That would be the fan fiction. I think he's going to go too. I last year kind of trying to learn from the mistakes of the CJ Stroud stuff. I'll believe it when I see it when he falls past the second pick. But that would be the ideal situation. But I would definitely be amenable to Cousins. I guess people don't see the upside, but he, like we talked about, Scott, he was playing the singularly best football of his career down the stretch. I don't think he's going to break the record, and Arthur Blank wants to go win right now. There's a little bit of certainty and immediacy with a Kirk Cousins in comparison to draft pick wild cards when you're not picking number 1 overall in the class. So I'm probably definitely more in favor of it than you are, but that's okay. And I'm also okay with Fields. I don't understand why he's falling so much. I get that there's risk, but if he's just going to cost you a 3rd round pick, do that and draft Bo Nix in the 2nd. Double. Mm-hmm. That's the type of range. Even if you have to pay him a new contract a little bit, take Bo Nix in the 2nd. That shouldn't stop you in that range. So I don't know. Like we said, a lot of options and a lot of good options for the Falcons. It stunk last year because obviously Ritter and Heineke were not the guys, but because they were so cheap, it was a short-term 1 season, not the guy. Now you can reset. It's not like the Broncos blowing their absolute everything, and now you're sunk. You had 1 season, it didn't work. Okay, here we go again. We get a reset. We get to roll the dice again versus skip your turn 3 or 4 times. So you have a chance.
You took a big hit on Matt Ryan's dead cap, but you didn't give up Julio Jones' trade for Matt Ryan to take that bad cap hit. The Broncos like stubbed their toe and then fell on the corner of the table and hit their nuts on the way down. I mean, that was a double shot on that one.
It was the rake to the rake, the Tom and Jerry style. He turns one way, rake.
Yes, step on one side, step on the other. That's a good one. Victor, he's talking about options too. Good to see you, Victor. Love that picture. Miss my motorcycles. He says, so much smoke surrounding what's going on at quarterback, it's hard to tell what's real or not. Yes, it is. And there's a ton of options. I'm guessing we'll have to wait until the 13th to see what's going on. We might not have to wait that long. The contact period opens up Sunday, the 11th at noon. That's when the deals start coming out. They've agreed to terms. Mm-hmm. That's basically the free agency period opens when you will start hearing that this is happening on Sunday, the 11th. That's not very far away. And I'm Nick, just from here on out, I refuse to call it the legal tampering period in writing or in spoken language. For me, it's the contact period.
Yep. Open window.
Yeah, it is, because that's what it is. It's not tampering if it's legal. That's an oxymoron. It's the contact period for free agency opens on November 11th.
Yeah. We'll be exciting. Falcons got a lot of money. Unfortunately, that edge rusher market is dissipating rather quickly, but that was expected. I did not expect Burns / Josh Allen to hit the market. I see Victor coming in too. Says, good morning, guys. In my signing Cousins is lazy by the Falcons or Terry Fontenot. The Falcons, Terry Fontenot, whatever. If everything goes well, we'll be in this exact same spot in 3 years. This team is not ready to compete in 24, maybe in 25. See, I don't agree that they're not ready to compete in 24. I think you got a really good offensive infrastructure in place. You did pretty well with the defense last season, and you have a lot of top 100 picks where you can still add to the roster as well. So, and the NFC South is open. You have a shot right now, and the NFC in general is open. The NFC is weak, guys. I mean, the 49ers are good, obviously, but that's a team that is built the way the 49ers are. They can fall off quickly because there are so many players that it's hard to keep that core together. I mean, the coaching overturn they've had there, et cetera, et cetera. So the NFC is wide open. You plug a Cousins on this team and Morris is the guy. I mean, why not the Falcons? So I don't think that it is crazy to say that with where this team is at right now. I think you have a lot of untapped potential, specifically on the offensive side, that if you got a competent quarterback in there, let alone a top 10 one like Cousins is, I think you could see some guys explode.
Yeah, and Adonis is, Ryan Adonis is really against this, looking at his win-loss record, and he's like 1-3 in the playoffs, and like his Monday Night Football. Is that is that because of where he is? Who's won in Washington recently? Minnesota hasn't exactly been world beaters lately. Is it because of the quarterback? Because they signed him such a huge contract they couldn't build around him? Or is that just because of, other circumstances? Because the numbers are good. The numbers for Kirk Cousins have been good. He's got, almost 300 touchdowns against 100 interceptions. He's about 2.5 to 1 in his career. He was off to his best start last year. Yeah, they were 4-4. But he says, I do not get the Kirk Cousins hype to sign him. The guy literally had a worse win-loss start than freaking Desmond Ridder at the start of last year. Okay, so 4-4 last year in the games he started. Let's switch the quarterbacks. Let's switch Kirk Cousins and Desmond Ridder with the Vikings and Falcons. And what are the records last year? I think they're significantly different. Maybe not because, they came in and were able to still beat the Falcons. They're not beating the Falcons with Kirk Cousins at quarterback with Josh Dobbs getting off the MARTA bus at being dropped off at the Benz, getting off the train there. They're not. That's not happening. So for me, again, it's not hype. And Ryan, I'll say this every podcast we do this. Every quarterback, unless they were able to trade up with it for 2 number ones and a second to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks, we're excited about that. I think that would be universal. Any quarterback after the top 3 in the draft, there's going to be red flags and there's going to be division amongst the fan base. JJ McCarthy, he doesn't even throw. They didn't even like him at Michigan. Bo Nix is a noodle arm and only throws screen passes. Michael Penix, I hope his insurance is good. Kirk Cousins is ancient and injured. Justin Fields can't throw. I mean, there's all of that stuff. But for me, the veterans, they're better options than what the Falcons had. They're getting better. And, and Victor, you said, it's a lazy solution. If everything goes well, we'll be in this exact same spot in 3 years. Victor, if everything goes well, the Falcons are playing in NFC Championship games, maybe a Super Bowl. That's what's going well. The Falcons roster is pretty good. It's pretty good, especially in the NFC. You have the San Francisco looks like a juggernaut right now. Dallas is vulnerable. Philly fell off a cliff. Tampa surprised some people last year. There's probably somebody I'm forgetting out there. The Rams, Packers, watch some of the old guard.
Detroit.
Watch some of the old guard, and they're Detroit Lions. But you're competing. You're absolutely competing.
Yeah, and I see Dave in here. Dave, I love Dave. We disagree on Kirk Cousins, and that's okay. The one thing I will push against, though, is he says, oh, gosh, where is it here? He mentioned, the comment go away? Where are you at, Dave? He says, with all due respect, it would be asinine to fork over that much guaranteed money for a bag chaser and a selfish player. I don't get that from Kirk Cousins at all, and I think that you are falling for the NFL owner propaganda here. Who is definitely chasing the bag and selfish is the owners maximizing every cent. So I'm pro player. Go out there and get everything what you want. And as Bill Parcells always said, you're worth what the market's willing to pay you. So I don't think that he's selfish by any means. And also to throw this in there, James Palmer the other day was talking on an interview talking about Cousins potentially to Atlanta. I guess obviously his wife is from very close to Atlanta.
Yeah,
and also
there's from my where I live, Alpharetta,
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I guess that there might be an ailing family member down in the Atlanta area as well. So there's factors here. But I appreciate you, Dave. And you guys can disagree. We'll see how it plays out. I think that Kirk Cousins, I'm not going to lie to you and say that he's one of the Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes, even Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson tier of quarterbacks. But I think he's tier 4 bumping his head on tier 3, where you're talking about like, oh, can he compete with Dak Prescott head to head? Can he compete with, honest to God, somebody I think is a little overrated, Joe Burrow head to head? I think there's a conversation there. So I don't think he's just purely a stat patter. I think that also he's playing the best ball of his career, Scott, in this system. So I don't know. I think you definitely could plug him in and win right now. I understand the sticker shock, but it makes sense to me. JM coming in, cool picture there, says, I can get behind Kirk or Justin Fields, but I swear if I see Baker Mayfield coming to Atlanta, like I've heard some rumors, I'm going to lose it. I think Baker's heading back to Tampa, but he makes sense too. He has the Rams ties, and if he's only going to cost $20 million a year, which I think more Geno Smith contract rather than Daniel Jones contract, then maybe that's something you can talk about, but do not pay him the Daniel Jones contract.
You're not going to get me on the Baker Mayfield bandwagon over Russell Wilson and Justin Fields for $20 million.
Yeah.
For me, it's still Justin Fields. I still like those two options if you don't draft a guy. I like the lower risk because there's risk on all of these guys. We've said that before. There's risk on every single one of them. So I want the lower risk. Yeah. When it comes to this. Edward Brown coming in with a super chat. Appreciate you coming in green. He says, is there a timeline for the Jags on a Ridley contract? I would say Sunday when the free agency period basically opens up, when the contact period opens up at noon. I think he's holding out now, though. When they didn't tag him, I think he is now arguably the top wide receiver in free agency. And someone's gonna overpay for him.
Did Michael Pittman get tagged?
He got tagged. He was always going to get tagged. Michael Pittman was not leaving Indianapolis.
Okay,
they had the money. They love him, and he flat out said, "I don't mind playing on the tag."
No,
so he was not leaving in the Indianapolis Colts, without a trade. Without a tag and trade. So. Yeah. It's going to cost you a couple first-round picks if for some reason they have a falling out. But he wants to stay there. They want to keep him. They've got the money. He's worth it. He's going to be a Colt.
Yeah. One thing I'll come back to, and thank you so much for the super chat, Edward, about Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. The sense I got coming out of the combine is a lot of these coaches, with how defenses are playing right now, really want their quarterbacks to protect the football, not take sacks, and operate on time over the middle of the field. That is not Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. That's also not Justin Fields. So I'm wondering, especially in these West Coast Shanahan tree guys, do Russell Wilson / Justin Fields make sense? Because can they operate on time, in rhythm, over the middle of the field, working those small areas between the linebackers and safeties? Haven't seen it so far in their careers. Now, granted, I think they're both, especially Justin Fields, young enough, talented enough that figure it out, manipulate your offense to make it work, especially with, like you mentioned, the low risk there. But that's not how a lot of the coaches operate, right? They come from their system. That's what they know. That's what they were hired to run. So some of them don't have the clubs in the bag to be able to change that much from their philosophy. So it's definitely complicated, and I think a little bit more complicated than just see quarterback, bring in quarterback, because there has to be a philosophical fit as well.
Yeah, Sean McVay's had a lot of success, so I don't know how much he's actually had to vary his play calling and stuff. And then, when you've got Matthew Stafford, he's had a couple of pocket guys.
Yeah.
Sean McVay ran the triple option in high school very, very well. If you haven't been to my YouTube page, like the front page, it's one of my most viewed videos, youtube.com/Scott Kennedy. I think it was a playoff game against Southwest DeKalb. I was there and shot video of him. And that was the playoffs, and he was a state championship quarterback at Marist, running the triple option, and he was really, really good at it. I promise you, Sean McVay, now how far that trickles down, knows how to run different systems. Edward Brown, I don't think I get the feeling Ridley's not going back to Jacksonville. But what we had talked about, Edward, when the question came up was, we think you get that upgrade from third to second, and that might be what you were asking, is if he signed with the Jaguars before the draft. I don't know, because right now the way it was always presented was if he signs an extension. Well, now it would be a new contract. So are you going to get hosed on the technicality there? I don't know. But Red Swarm coming in, appreciate you. He says, to correct the record on Kyle Pitts never said that Florio lied. His exact quote of the post was, "This is actually funny, lots of laughter. You guys come up with anything." And frankly, Pitts has more juice in Atlanta than Kirk Cousins. He's not giving up 8 unless he wants to, unless he offers it up. Kirk Cousins isn't coming in and saying, "Hey, top 4 highest drafted rookie of tight end of all time, I want your number." No. Okay, that ends that conversation. So it would be something that Kyle Pitts would have to offer up, and Kyle Pitts would have to pretty much be actively recruiting Kirk Cousins right now. I don't see a whole lot of that going on. If anything, I would see it more with Justin Fields, the Atlanta connection. They're much more similar in age. Justin just turned 25. I think Kyle's 23, turns 24 at the start of this year, which makes him younger than most of the quarterbacks in this draft. Mm-hmm. So I think Florio may have been said. What I've heard is, that they're even talking about switching 8s, but I didn't watch it. So, but appreciate you, Red Swarm. Thank you so much. Yeah. Greg Elrod coming in. Appreciate you being here. Says, Russell or Kirk? If you had 2 used cars, same model, roughly the same options of mileage, but one wasn't in a wreck the previous year and was a fraction of the price, which would you buy? So, he's saying, why would you pay more for a guy coming off the injury than Russell Wilson? Kirk Cousins is a better pure passer, as far as trying to run a passing option. Offense, Kirk Cousins is a better one. But again, I don't see a 20x difference in pay for Russell Wilson versus Kirk Cousins.
I think you mentioned that exponential drop-off from quarterback to not. And Russell, let's be real. I mean, Russell Wilson at this point, he is going to be lucky to come out of this offseason with a no-doubt starting spot. I think he's going to be finding this offseason to be rough for him. I think it's probably more likely he goes to a situation like Pittsburgh where he's competing with a Kenny Pickett, or New York Giants where he's competing with a Daniel Jones, versus Kirk Cousins, who is going to be an outright starter. So obviously the way Greg sets it up, the same model, same mileage, et cetera, you take the cheaper one, but it's not the same model. These are opposite cars. You have
we're a base Mustang versus a Shelby GT350.
I mean, it's a old BMW German car that, like, oh my God, the expense is going to be unbelievable to maintain it. Why would you buy a used BMW versus a Toyota, which, Toyota's not fun, but God bless you, it's going to do things for you and be dependable. And that's kind of what Kirk is. I mean, I would say Kirk is maybe 5 times the quarterback right now compared to Russell Wilson. And
I don't necessarily agree with that. Okay. I think Russell Wilson was handcuffed to a certain extent. There were certain things in there, obviously, we didn't particularly like watching him every single game. But, on the whole, he was still 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. You put that in Atlanta Falcons offense last year and they win the South. They may win a playoff game depending on the matchup. There were 26 touchdowns against 8 interceptions. So I missed my numbers. Here's a question for you. Mm-hmm. And going with Greg on the Russell and Kirk, it felt like as we were watching, Russell Wilson put the ball on the turf a lot, didn't it?
Oh my gosh.
It at least, we said the same thing about Desmond Ridder. Let me look up his numbers real quick. How many, without looking it up, how many fumbles did Russell Wilson have last year?
I feel like they're all very timely too. So maybe the volume isn't as high, but they were all impactful. So I'm going to go with, is this total fumbles on the ground, or is this
not sure what it is? It might be just lost fumbles.
Okay, I would say 4.
Well, okay, then it's total fumbles then, because it's more than that.
Okay. Is it 8?
Russell Wilson had 10 fumbles last year.
Oh, he did not lose 10 fumbles.
Okay, it's total fumbles. It's 10.
That's not great.
Desmond Ridder in 13 starts, how many fumbles did he have? Felt like he was putting the ball on the ground in timely scenarios, didn't it? It was always in the red zones. Yeah. One or the other. He's a box-to-box midfielder, but man, you get him near the red zone and things started going badly.
I would go 12.
He did have 12. He had 12 fumbles in 13 starts and 8 starts. So we said it felt like he was putting the Russell Wilson was putting the ball on the ground a lot. It was 10 against 15 starts. How many did Kirk Cousins have in his 8 starts?
Oh man. 3?
7.
Okay.
7.
Not
There's
great.
the number right there. Again, Kirk Cousins would make this team better, no doubt. I don't want to burn most of the salary cap. Again, I'd rather have Danielle Hunter, another safety, DL, give me a linebacker. I'm going to have to spend some money on a wide receiver. I'd rather have that and then a cheaper option in Justin Fields and Russell Wilson than going all in with what you've got and then supplementing it with draft picks because it wouldn't cost you a draft pick at all. That's a good thing. Man, I'd rather have Russell Wilson and a bag of cash than Kirk Cousins. Now, I can get behind Kirk Cousins. Like I said, I just the money option there is I don't like it. The risk is I can't build the team the way I want to when I sign him in the injury. I love his passing play. I love his play, but I feel like I can get close to the play, but build a better team.
Yeah.
And I like those options.
Definitely a lot of options forward. And yeah, Kirk definitely could be trying to leverage Minnesota. I think if everything was equal, he would return to Minnesota. Minnesota has an awesome offensive infrastructure. I mean, as much as I talk about the Falcons infrastructure being good, the Vikings infrastructure, I think, is better. To be honest, I mean, you got the best wide receiver in football, in my opinion. You got a legit number 2 in Addison, and you have bookend tackles who are really good. I mean, you know how much I love Christian Darrisaw. Some of his plays are just like, oh my God, that guy's an alien. And I like Brian O'Neill as well. So they have their defense is really bad. But offensive infrastructure in Minnesota is good. And also it seems like he's making beautiful music with Kevin O'Connell, who's just doing amazing stuff out there in Minnesota. That's a great pairing. That's one reason I'd be interested in Kirk Cousins so much. This Shanahan tree offense seems to be magic for that.
Both working for Sean McVay. There's similarities there. But again, okay, what could Russell Wilson do there? What could Justin Fields do there?
I just don't know if they can operate on time and work the middle of the field. Those are two things that need to happen, I think, to work that rhythm style offense. I don't know if either of those guys can do it at such a level, but you're paying so cheap for those guys that maybe it's
paying these coaches a lot of money to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, we coaching matters, right? Coaching. It matters, right?
It does. And one thing I will say is there's a lot of Kirk Cousins pushback in the chat, and I get it, guys. I mean, I'm not saying that he's a no doubt top 7-8 quarterback in the NFL, but look at what Justin Fields' market is going to be. Let's put this in a pin, put it in a time capsule. Let's open it in 2 months. Look what Justin Fields gets, and look what Cousins gets. And that should tell you enough of what the league thinks about these guys right now, because there are a lot of quarterback options, and Cousins is still really highly sought after. Older, coming off the Achilles. He's going to get paid.
Cousins is the number 1 veteran option right now.
It's not even close. It's not. There's everybody else's second thought
for teams. Now, I would rather have Russell and Justin Fields at cheap. I would. Now, if they're all the same price, you know, there's talk about here, you know, there's Cousins is trash. I'd rather have Russell Wilson and Fields. And part of that, people are confused. I think they're just talking about the money in there. You know, if we take the money out of it, Matt Ryan got a lot of shtick because of his cap number. You know, after being asked to restructure, he ended up with the highest cap number in the NFL. He's still a good quarterback. But his cap number wasn't worth it. He wasn't the best quarterback, and he's taken up the most resources of the best. And again, age, injury, price. Those are 3 strikes when I'm comparing what else to do. Now, I can probably get Justin Fields. Russell Wilson's got a choice. I can't necessarily get him. That's a recruiting pitch. I'm not going to be able to pay extra money. They're offering you 5, I'll give you 10. That's not going to matter, because unless you go over $40 million for Russell Wilson, he doesn't get a penny of that money anyway. It's going back to the Broncos. And that's okay. Rusty, Kirk's trying to leverage Minnesota. That's okay. That's what agents are for. And you got to look out for yourself, because as soon as you're more expensive, as soon as your contract is more than you are worth, you're gone. You're gone. And we've seen now that an $85 million dead cap number isn't even enough to guarantee that you're going to be around. Right, Denver Broncos. Marco Z coming in with a super. He says Kirk is a better passer than Fields. How is he 10 plus years older, coming off an injury, much more expensive? I would much rather have Fields. You can always drop him with no repercussions. And that's kind of where I am too. The risk factor on Cousins, I actually think it's lower risk. But again, if it
It's a
doesn't
bigger
work out
commitment.
in year one, okay, then I've got to go find another quarterback anyway. And I've lost the opportunity to make my team stronger, my overall team stronger. Yeah, you blew it with Ritter and Heineke last year, but the team's better, without a doubt. You had the money because you didn't go spend a ton of money on a quarterback that wasn't available, Lamar Jackson, or anybody. You didn't spend a ton of money on a quarterback to get Caden Ellis, to get David Onyemata, to get Jesse Bates on long-term deals, to re-sign Chris Lindstrom. The team is better. Now it's just find the quarterback and drop him in there and play him. I'm not getting better except for the quarterback position, which is risky as hell on a 36-year-old guy coming off an injury.
Yeah. I wish we could show the graphics of the injury history between both those guys, but you're right. Fields is very, especially if he's just going to cost a 3rd-round pick at this point, so low risk. And in the end, I think the best option for the Falcons is to get that rookie quarterback, but they're going to try to probably fill it first and in free agency. And if that's the case, you have a chance at a heck of a player in the draft. And speaking of which, Ben Albright, pretty connected in the league circles. Obviously, this time of year, nobody's going to bat 100. But we've been talking a lot about the draft pick of quarterback. But outside of quarterback, it's been edge rusher for the Falcons at 8 overall. Interesting from Ben Albright. He mentions that if the Falcons stay at 8 and are not taking quarterback, what are they looking at? He mentions edge rusher, of course, but he also mentions offensive tackle. And that's something we've talked about in here in theory, but never in practice in the mock draft simulators we've run and everything like that. So
that's because our edges have been available.
The edges have been available. And also, Odunze keeps falling, which I don't think is happening in real life, Scott. It seems like coming out of the combine that the Bears are actually going to try to move up from 9 to go get a wide receiver. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. I don't think Neighbors, Harrison, or Odunze are going to fall to you at 8. So it's not even a conversation then. But I think the edge rusher, offensive tackle on the table, and we have not talked so much right tackle. I see Troy Franklin saying right tackle, sir. Yep, there's a tackle at 8. So definitely options there.
So let me see here. Yeah, Troy Green, again, there's a tackle there. Now, why does this make so much sense? Okay. We've talked about it being a sneaky need for this team. One, Caleb McGarry was really good in a run-based oriented power offense. When they went right, and for some reason they rarely did, they're expecting that. We won't go behind our $30 million right side of our offensive line. We'll go left behind the rookie, left guard. That was the sound of me rolling my eyes and shaking my head, if you were listening, for Arthur Smith and his red zone play call. Now, with a different offense, we talk scheme fits all the time. And when I'm talking draft picks, I don't give a crap about scheme fits. When I'm talking about free agents and veterans, I do. Caleb McGarry is probably not a great scheme fit for this team. He's probably not. Jake Matthews is now, let's see, in 2024, he'll be playing at 32 years old. It's time. You're going to need somebody. Now, Caleb McGarry, in 2025, you play this year, Jake Matthews, you need him to be safe regardless. But in 2025, when he's 33 years old, Jake Matthews' cap hit is $22 million against a dead cap of 12. You are now out from under Jake Matthews' contract. No more restructures, no more nothing. You're out from under it. You've got options there. Caleb McGarry, on the other hand, that bounced on me. I hate it when it does that. I looked this up earlier so I could just quote it from memory because it keeps bouncing on me. Is 16.5 on 2 next year, meaning you save $14 million and change at right tackle without Caleb McGarry in 2025. He might not be a scheme fit, and I can save $15 million. Right tackle, offensive tackle, absolutely becomes an option here. Now, when we go through our mock draft, the one thing I am able to get all throughout the draft is offensive linemen. There's tackles I like all through the draft, all the way into the 5th, 6th round. There's guys, I like that guy. I could take him and let him work for a year, strength and conditioning, scheme and all that stuff. And then I've got maybe a replacement for McGarry the next year. You know what I don't ever find, Nick, when I'm going through this, which is a big need for this team, and they're never there unless I take them in the 1st round?
What?
Cornerback. The Falcons, I think, are going to have to go free agent cornerback. There is never. We'll look at day 2, unless you want to trade back a little bit and you get one of the. I don't want one of the corners at 8. There's too many other good options there. But if I were to move back some, get Terrion Arnold, Nate Wiggins, even a little farther back, Cooper DeJean. I'm missing one in there. Quinyon Mitchell. There's another one in there I'm missing too.
Nate Wiggins.
I said Nate, so we'll see. But there's first round options.
Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry.
In that 10 to 20 range. And then after that, it gets tough. So that's something to watch in free agency, which starts Sunday. And the Falcons have money. Isn't that exciting? It's so exciting. Gary Palmer says, good morning, Scott and Nick. There's an old saying, familiarity breeds contempt. Just because a player doesn't work out in one scheme. Yeah, and again, we've talked about that, Gary, with the guys that make it to an Oblivion Empire. I see, because I'm going to roll this into it. We've seen Justin Fields in the NFL in a bad team for 3 years. All of a sudden, okay, he's not any good anymore. Can you imagine where he'd be right now if he'd been playing college ball the last 3 years with these other guys? He'd be putting up Star Wars numbers, pinball machine, Tecmo Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be in the neighborhood of a top 5 pick. But we've seen him. We don't like him. He's not any good anymore. Justin Fields at 20, just turned 25. He's still a prospect to me. He's 11 months older than Bo Nix. He's still a prospect. A cheap one at that. Now, if I get Justin Fields, I'm not picking up his 5th-year option. We've talked about this before, but we get a lot of new viewers. His 5th-year option is $20+ million. The Carolina Panthers did that with Sam Darnold. Traded a 2nd-round pick for him, immediately picked up his 5th-year option, didn't like him. Now they're stuck with $20+ million guaranteed for a quarterback that they jettison the next year. No. If you trade for him and he plays like a $40 million quarterback, so be it. You got a $40 million quarterback for $1 million last year. Pay for it, or next year. Pay for it in 2025.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you got options there without a doubt. The thing with Russell Wilson too is that you bring in the entourage, you bring in the private jet, the celebrity status. I don't know. I'm probably too close to it, but I'm just so tired of the Wilson circus that goes on, and I would not want anything to do with it, even though he's going to be cheap. So that's just me. I understand what other teams might feel and take that chance because he's going to be low risk and he's going to be motivated. I don't think he's a bad person by any means, but I don't think that he's somebody that I want to bring just all the circus with him right now.
I think he'd be humbled enough coming out of the disaster that was Denver Broncos that he'd be much more low key.
Do you think he's in touch with reality enough to have that happen? I mean, okay.
I do. When someone says, I'd rather take an $85 million dead cap hit than have you here, that's a wake-up call, brother.
You'd hope.
Yeah, that's a wake-up call. Now, I got a question from one of our Broncos viewers asking about, the market for Russell Wilson. And it was DM and Twix just talking about, like, listen, Sean Payton was supposed to fix Russell Wilson and didn't. Why would anybody want this guy? I'm like, because he still had 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. That's better than half the league. He's not broken. He didn't have a bad year. They just think they can get similar quarterback play for less money, and they want to restart their salary cap clock in 2025. That's understandable. Mm-hmm. He's got a $55 million cap hit in 2025. Russell Wilson for $55 million? Hell no. No way. That's the situation the Denver Broncos were in. Russell Wilson making your team better for dirt cheap and the ability to build a team around him with free agent money and draft picks the next 2 years without having to give up anything? Yeah, that's an appealing option. He's better than Desmond Ridder. You improve at quarterback. The team around him gets better. And I can still go draft a guy if I need to. I can get his ready-made replacement. Now I take Michael Penix in the 3rd.
Yeah. We'll be curious to see what happens with Penix if the talk of coming out of the combine is that he did well in the medicals. Because I think out of the quarterbacks there, and again, it's not real football, but the throwing on air, I thought he was the best quarterback of the bunch in terms of the ability to drop back and throw the ball all throughout the yard. I mean,
I love his arm.
His arm is no doubt.
Like I said, I watch watching 3 games of Penix versus 3 games of Bo Nix. 2 of them were head to head. I'm like, there's no doubt which one of these guys has the NFL arm. There's no doubt.
Yep.
But the injury history is terrifying.
Yeah.
But in the 3rd round, okay, I'm willing to take a shot at that. I'm absolutely willing to take a shot at that. Oblivion Empire comes in with a super chat. He says, why has no one talked about Trey Lance? I think that's a great question. It's come up some, he's be cheap too. He's still a prospect as far as I'm concerned. We've had this discussion on various pods. I had it with Zach Kelberman the other night on MHH on Mile High Huddle. He says, I don't want another retread quarterback. Trey Lance isn't a retread. He's played a game and a half in the NFL. He is still a prospect. He is still a prospect that a lot of guys had as first rounders on their board. If you had him as a first rounder and you can get him for a 4th, why not? Why not sign Russell Wilson and trade a 4th for Trey Lance and give it a shot? If it doesn't work, I'll draft again next year. I didn't give up anything to get him. I'll shoot again. It's when you give up those future picks that it becomes scary. When you give up long-term money, it becomes scary. When you give up both, that's terrifying.
It's one of those things with, that draft class specifically, you only have 1 year of control left, right? Or is it 2 years?
No, it's 1 year. You could pick up his option, but you're not gonna.
You're not going
to. His option to be $25 million.
No. So I'm wondering if you could give him an extension on top of the contract that he's coming in with. That'd be, we're going to give you $16 million over the 2 years after this contract with 8 of it guaranteed. That's something that would interest me, because it's just if you trade for him and it's just the 1 year and then he's gone, it's more of the long-term option for me with Trey Lance. So I think that if he was super cheap, trade and then you can get him a contract as well, that would interest me. Just because, again, what's the downside? You're talking about trading a 5th round pick, a 6th round pick or something. Very little risk. And I see Pac D Soam come in and says Trey Lance is garbage. He might be, but for a 6th round pick, most of the options.
What are your expectations?
I can guarantee. Give me your 6th round pick. Show me who it is. And
Sam Hartman.
If I spin the wheel, he's probably going to be garbage, right? Yeah. Whatever you spend in a 6th round pick. Doesn't have to be a quarterback even. Anything. Yeah. Probably garbage.
6th round picks in history, most of them. What about Tom Brady? With a small enough sample size, I'll prove anything for you. Actually, I have in a spreadsheet, last 25 years, quarterbacks drafted in the last 25 years. Let me sort by round here, and I'll read off some of the names that were taken in the 6th just for poops and giggles here. Round, pick. Okay, 6th round. I'm going to read off some of these names here over the last 25 years. Tom Brandstetter, Mark Bulger, Zach Mettenberger, Mike Teal, Gardner Minshew, Rusty Smith, David Fales, Josh Booty, Jake Luton, Tanner McKee, Dan Lefevre, Nate Sudfeld, Josh Heupel, JT O'Sullivan, Tyrod Taylor, Ryan Lindley, Jake Ruddock, Spurgeon Wynn, Keith Wenning. Okay, I could go on, but you get the point. It's about 1 out of every 5 or 6 that had any kind of success at all, which is about right, because you figure it's probably 2 out of 3 in the 1st round, and then it drops down your probability. So Trey Lance might be garbage. I'd rather have Trey Lance in camp than Sam Hartman. I'd rather have Trey Lance in camp than Michael Pratt, the guys that were going to be available in that area. There's some guys here. We've been so busy. There's some OGs I haven't been able to say hello to. I really want to say hello, like Chris Walker. He's in here. Chris, OG, good to see you. I think he's probably talking about the offensive tackles in here. I think we can get a good one in the 2nd or 3rd round. Might even be talking about wide receivers. Might be talking cornerbacks.
Yeah, there are 2 cornerbacks I did want to mention. I did want to mention a couple, Scott, because you mentioned, I don't know if we're running a mock draft simulator today or not.
We are. We're going to do that in a few minutes.
2 guys who really caught my eye coming out of the combine in the drills and in the testing that have been ranked about 3rd, 4th round that I think are interesting options are both Kentucky, the state of Kentucky guys. Jarvis Brownlee Jr., 5'10", 194, and Andrew Phillips out of Kentucky. Andrew Phillips, man, he really impressed me in the combine drills. I think he's just competitive, man. He moves really well. So he's definitely somebody that interests me a good bit there. If you're looking in the back end of the top 100, both those guys I think are really good options for cornerbacks that we haven't been taking cornerbacks, but certainly an option there.
Victor, he agrees with you about Russell Wilson. He's a distraction in the locker room. Again, I think there's some humbling going on there. Jeremy Shaw disagrees, says, no, the delusion is never going away with Russell Wilson. That's okay. For $2 million, you're taking a $2.5 million dead cap hit on, who was it? It was on Jonnu Smith. Mm-hmm. It would cost you as much to have Russell Wilson on your roster as it is costing you to have Jonnu Smith this year, as it is costing you to have Cordero Patterson this year, and they're not playing for you. So if it's a problem, bye. And again, for me, it was Russell Wilson and always. And so when you're in the comments, hopefully if you get a hot take and you start pounding away at your keyboard, remember, for me, it was always Russell Wilson and not just Russell Wilson. So I need Russell Wilson and a rookie, wherever I draft him. But I'm bringing in two. If I bring in Russell Wilson, I'm bringing in someone else. And it might be a day 2 quarterback then. That's fine. But with Russell Wilson, it's Russell Wilson and is my answer on that, not just Russell Wilson. And you can do that because he doesn't cost you anything. He doesn't cost you at all. So just remember, for me, it's always the and part of that is what's more important to me. So to wrap up, since I put it in the title of this, Kirk Cousins to Atlanta. That is the news coming from Pro Football Talk. That's NBC. They're a fairly reputable, Mike Florio's fairly reputable in there. He kind of made his name rumor mongering, but he's okay. It makes sense for a lot of reasons. That's partially connecting the dots. The mock draft mania in there is what I mentioned. Dane Brugler, he had the Falcons trading number 8, number 43. That's a first and a second. Next year's second and first rounder to move up to number 3 and take Jayden Daniels. Yes, please. I'd do that in a heartbeat. I don't think the Patriots would take that pick. Someone would outbid the Falcons for that. They're throwing in another number 1. They're getting the Broncos would send them 3. If they were on the phone with the Patriots and the Patriots said, we want number 12, your 2025 number 1, your 2026 number 1, the Broncos are probably doing that deal. And that beats the Falcons picks. So I think that's tough. I do it all day. I don't think it's necessarily realistic. And then the other ones that have been coming around are the edge rushers. Dallas Turner and Jared Verse are going in mock drafts from Mel Kiper, from Lance Zierlein, from basically everybody. It's been edge because everybody assumes the Falcons will be done at quarterback before the draft. And they could be done next week. It could be as soon as next week with Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields.
Yeah. We'll see what happens here with that. We got Boney Bluffs Gaming coming in here. So Russell Wilson is cheap, so I completely agree with you. There's no reason not to get him and get a young guy. Getting Kirk is crazy if we don't win in the Super Bowl is a big fail. It's unfortunate that only one team can win the Super Bowl, right? And that team is typically the one that has the best quarterback in football. But just because you don't have that guy doesn't mean you should completely give up on the season and not look at other avenues. I mean, there are always seasons where, a Nick Foles or a Joe Flacco end up winning the Super Bowl. So, or a zombie Peyton Manning even. So you still want to check those options out there. But yeah, if you don't have one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league any given time, it's going to be hard to win the Super Bowl. But those guys are next to impossible to find. You have to be better lucky than good in that regard too. So, I mean, even if you have the number 1 overall pick, Trevor Lawrence, all these guys, there's no Bryce Young, no guarantee there. So it's tough, but you got to still, try to come to the table and go for it.
Yeah. BBG, I again, you hear how I'm talking about this. I want to mitigate my risk, and getting a cheap veteran limits the risk while I can still build my team. So again, it's Russell Wilson. And now there was a question here. I don't remember who it's from. Apologies. But if you get Justin Fields, would you get another quarterback? Probably. I probably still could. It just wouldn't be at 8. I wouldn't use my 8 there, unless it's a guy I absolutely freaking love and he's number 1 on my board. Then you always pick. Then it doesn't matter what else you've got going on. Then you take your guy at 8 that you absolutely love. Position doesn't matter. Depth doesn't matter when you're drafting in the top 10. But Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, probably not. I'm probably not going quarterback again. I'm going to give him a shot. And if it doesn't work, then I'm going big on quarterback. I'm drafting high again in 2025. Mm-hmm. So appreciate the super chat. But if you don't win the Super Bowl, it's a big fail. I disagree on that one. Falcons fans, we've been around a long time. It's almost 6 years. They've never won a Super Bowl. Right now, an NFC South division title and a playoff win would look great. That would energize the city. It would energize the dome. It would make game days fun again. It would build for the future where your free agency money, because Terry Fontenot's doing a good job managing the cap, of attracting more free agents, that you can have success with Kirk Cousins or anybody without winning a Super Bowl. Otherwise, there's really no reason to have been a fan of the Atlanta Falcons because you've never won one. So on that note, Corey Carter also comes in. He says, sure, be nice to bring in a veteran quarterback and let the board fall you. Sure would be nice to bring in a veteran quarterback and let the board fall to you, even if it's a quarterback at 8. That's what I was just saying. We're right there. 8 can get you a difference maker. Yeah, we're on the same wavelength here. I wouldn't be targeting a quarterback at 8, but if I look at my board and my number one guy is a quarterback and I bring in Justin Fields or Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson, my number one guy is a quarterback at 8. Guess what I'm taking? I'm taking a quarterback, even if I have to trade him later in the draft. Even if someone says, at number 12, the Denver Broncos are on the clock. They have sent this pick to the Atlanta Falcons in exchange for, you take your guy. Yeah. A veteran guy for sure. We're at 56 minutes. We usually go long on Wednesdays. So if you want to fire up the mock drafter, I'm going for it.
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. Let me bring this up here. And we'll pretend right now I'm going into this under the assumption the Falcons have their quarterback. I really am. Yeah. I think they get their quarterback next week. I think it's going to be Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields, and I think they are done next week. So we'll go into this under that assumption. Let me maximize this here. Go to about 150. We can see that okay. I've selected the Atlanta Falcons. Sometimes I forget to that. I've bumped up positional value and needs just a little bit because, again, they have Jayden Daniels ranked so low that you can always get him, and I don't think that's realistic. I'll be surprised if he comes out of the top 5, really. I think quarterbacks are going 3 of the top 4 again, just like last year. The teams they're drafting are more needy, and the prospects are better. They're not falling. So let's get started here. Chicago Bears on the clock. We'll hit start draft. And they have Drake May going number 1 to the Bears, Caleb Williams number 2, Malik Neighbors over Marvin Harrison Jr., Quinyon Mitchell, fast rising cornerback, going 5 overall, Rome Odunze, Joe Alt on the clock of the Atlanta Falcons. I'm gonna knock this down 1 spot, Nick, so we can see it just a little bit better. Hopefully that y'all can see that okay. You've got your pick here. Your edges are all here. Your wide receivers, Rome Odunze's here, Malik Neighbors. Your wide receivers are gone. If you wanted to go corner, you could. If you wanted to go tackle, you could. They don't rate Jared Verse and Dallas Turner. If I knew everybody's board looked like this, I'd want to trade down a couple spots. I don't think you can get Dallas Turner and Jared Verse if you trade down to 16 and 18.
This must be a new board again. I don't remember Troy Fontenot being this high either, but let's scroll to the top again. I just want to see the names. I can't believe Jerzon Newton's that high, but it is what it is. I think I lean Dallas Turner. It really comes down to what you think the scheme is going to be. Do you need a little bit more classic hand in the dirt 4-3 edge, or do you want a little bit more of a jack type, the hybrid linebacker / pass rusher? Turner's athleticism and length and age all lean me towards him over Verse, but I don't have an issue with that. I also think we're in a conversation here for both Talise Fuaga as well as Amarius Mims. As we mentioned earlier, Albright indicated that the Falcons are looking at offensive tackle and edge rusher if it's not quarterback there. So do want to throw those guys out as well. Olu Fashanu seems to be slipping a bit. Didn't have the best season. Hands came crazy small also. So all things were, I think, mentioning there. But I think Fuaga and Mims are definitely in the conversation here.
Darius Mayfield, any given the right amount of cash and 10 wins is easy. Yeah, I think 10 wins. So, the previous The previous chat from Boney's Bluff Gaming was, if you don't win a Super Bowl, it's a big fail. For me, that number is 10 wins also, Darius. If you get Kirk Cousins and you spend $40 million and you don't get at least 10 wins in a playoff berth, then it's a fail. Then that's, to me, is the floor. If you don't do that, then it's a fail. 10 wins last year would have been a sure thing. This is a new year. Some teams that you're counting on as wins will have gotten better. The schedule will never be easier than it was last year. That was the easiest schedule probably in Falcons history. And I don't say that with hyperbole. I meant it when I've said it a zillion times. But yeah, 10 wins should be the floor if they sign anybody. Whoever they get at quarterback, they should be expecting 10 wins and a playoff berth. I'm going Dallas Turner here. I like the explosiveness. I'm okay with the hybrid aspect of it. You've got some big ends. You're pretty good on the defensive line with your size, with Zach Harrison, Taquan Graham, David Onyemata, and Grady Jarrett, rotating those guys in 3 or 4, however you want to do it. That I like the size in there, and they've been pretty good. Fontenot's been really good about finding backup defensive tackles for off the scrapyard. LaCale London, who's our guy that ended up with Washington, got a bag from 2 years ago. Wasn't Muhammad Abdullah?
Yeah,
it was. Was it Abdullah Anderson? Was that his name? I already forgot. Or was that the running back that I always confuse him with?
I can't
Amir
remember.
Abdullah? No, that was the running back.
Yeah.
Anyway, they've been really good at getting backup guys that can come in. I'm going with the explosiveness. I'd absolutely go with Jared Verse here. I could make that argument really well, but I'm going Dallas Turner.
Yeah, Turner is going to be fun. A lot of it's going to come down to the scheme and everything as well for you. And man, it's too bad Chop Robinson fell here as well because he'd have been great at this spot, but that's okay.
I could go 2 edges. I could absolutely go 2 edges. Right now, the only one that you have that you can count on, and he might be a number 3 anyway, is Arnold Emichetti.
Yeah. I mean, he's certainly an option here. There's also, we talked about him earlier, Braden Fisk. This is the range where I expect him to start being in the conversation. I like TJ Tampa a lot, but we might want to see what happens there in round 3. And we're in prime wide receiver area as well. So want to see what the board looks like at that position.
Wide receivers I like up and down the board. After
there's Andrew
Kyrie
Phillips.
Jackson, okay.
But I like Ronaldo Green.
I like Max Milton,
I like Milton. I like Jarvis Brownlee. There's options here.
Okay.
I want to see the wide receivers.
Wide receiver.
There's Roman Wilson.
No, I hit cornerback too.
Yep, it's okay. You got to unclick when you do it.
That's silly. Damn it.
You did corner again. There you go.
Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall. Those are good options. Keon Coleman. And as I go down a little farther, Xavier Worthy's still there. They still have him 68.
I mean, yeah. I don't want to grade him twice. Like, that's not what you want to do, but that's
you were talking about him back into the first before the combine.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. I already thought he was there.
I know.
So I might lean Xavier Worthy here just because you don't have that element to your offense at all. And I think it's all about explosives today. So I think that having somebody like that would make a huge difference and just bring a totally different dynamic to your team.
Falcons fans, could you get behind a slot type receiver who runs a 4-2-1, who was very productive at Texas? Yeah, I could take him. And if Jeremy Sean says Worthy is getting overdrafted 40 times or overrated, yeah, the thing is, like Nick said, Nick liked his game enough that he was talking about him at the back end of the first round before the combine. I'll back him on that. TJ Tampa is a solid option too, Michael. I agree with that. But I could go here. Any of these wide receivers, I'd be happy with at 43. I'd be happy with Roman Wilson. Love Ricky Pearsall. Don't know as much about Jermaine Burton. Keon Coleman was getting top 15 shouts 3 months ago. Don't know as much about Jalen either. Xavier Worthy, yeah. Tez Walker, too early for the rest of these guys.
I'm taking Xavier Worthy here.
Xavier Worthy here anyway.
And like he had a broken hand his sophomore year, so he battled some drops. I think I would have rather he weighed 185 and ran a 4.26 than weigh 65, 170 and run the 4.21 personally. But he lost the weight and made a bet on himself that he was going to run really high. But it's not like he's a one-year wonder who hasn't had the statistical output either. His freshman year coming in there to Texas, he had 981 yards, 12 touchdowns I mean, as a true freshman coming in and out there and playing for the Longhorns.
He's not just a speed merchant. He can
No.
play some, but I'd be pretty
He
happy.
has
And
the
then
stats.
Michael says, watch out for, Christian McCaffrey's brother at wide receiver. They've got him in the 150s still. Luke McCaffrey is absolutely someone I target. I think he's like 129 at the highest, but he's absolutely in there in the discussion for sure. I think he goes day 2. I think he goes the latest. I think he's a top 100 guy, possibly. And then again, as I was going through this before, no thank you. I'm out on Michael Pratt. Spencer Rattler is absolutely somebody I could take in the 3rd. If I get Russell Wilson and I go non-quarterback in the first 2 rounds, I'd be happy with Spencer Rattler here. No matter who the quarterback is, unless I took another rookie quarterback at 8. But if I've got my quarterback before I go into the draft, I'm okay taking Spencer Rattler in the 3rd round here.
Yeah, I mean, it is fine. I'm curious. Can I see what the tackles / cornerbacks look like?
If I go corner,
all the premium positions. There's Andrew Phillips.
I go corner,
love him.
And I go offensive tackle. Patrick Paul is still here at 86, but I have 2 picks, remember.
Can you scroll down a little bit still? There's much more cornerbacks available than tackles. I think there's a massive fall off after. Love a lot of these cornerbacks still. I'm not buying
because I did one of these just to test the mock draft before I went, and I took Christian Jones in the 4th.
Christian Jones is hard for me because he looked really good at the combine, but I think his tape at Texas was not great.
And he was okay at the Senior Bowl, and he's got a lot of tools. So 4th round for Christian Jones, I can live with that.
I think I like the cornerback options.
And then here's my guy right here at 141 is Roger Rosengarten. Right, that's a cheat code for me. He should go top 100. That's a cheat for me at offensive tackle. I would take him in the 4th at 110 in a heartbeat.
Yeah, he's going to go somewhere from like 80 to 105. I think that you should go with scroll down. That's okay. If I was in charge here, I just think there's such a drop off in tools and talent that I would lean Patrick Paul here. He's a really interesting person too. Tested great, has incredible length. From Nigeria, he's actually somebody who wants to go back to Nigeria when he's done. He's got a lot of interest. He's also taken up martial arts and boxing to work with the hands and the frame of him. And I think that the overall size, length, movement skills, you don't typically get that this far. I think he's going to go somewhere top 60. So I think he's the obvious choice for you in this situation, especially if you want to look at the other cornerbacks. I liked about 6 or 7 of the guys still available there, and I think you'll get them later in the 3rd, where Paul, I think, is going to come off the board in the next 5 to 10 picks.
Holy Morale says, Bluff Gaming, Russell Wilson beat Jalen Hurts or couldn't beat Jalen Hurts or Brock Purdy. Russell Wilson is done. Yeah, but he was able to beat Jared Allen and Patrick Mahomes. See how that game works? It's a team game. See how that game works? Yeah, it's silly to play that game with a small enough sample size. I'll prove anything you want to. Lost to Zach Wilson, but beat Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a team game, y'all. It's a team game. Let's see. So Patrick, I like Patrick. I was on him early. I like the tools there. Light feet, Senior Bowl guy, was lining up at right tackle. I also, when I last did this, knowing that safety number 2 is a big option, I've taken Cameron Kitchens here in this spot to fill that safety spot you need. But yeah, I like the tackle. I would look down the board and hope that I could still get, and I still might go safety here. It's still a big need.
Have you seen how many safeties were cut in the last 24 hours, Scott?
Yeah, that's true also. So the Falcons might get their safety in free agency.
For cheap. Cheap. So I think I would not be looking to pay or draft a safety here. You have cornerbacks galore here, options. I really like Renardo Green. I really like the other one was further down too that we talked about.
It was Max Melton was still on the board, I think.
The one though, I mean, I just talked about him.
I like Michael Hall. There's a pick at 100.
He's a good one too. The one who stands out for me here though, Scott, Andrew Phillips from Kentucky. There's just an energy he brings.
See a corner? Good, because I need a corner. We need a corner here. We need somebody to come in and compete at quarterback too.
He tested really well, Scott. And I thought the drills too. He just the first one in and out of the drills, very competitive. I thought he stood out at the Senior Bowl. Has good size as well. Let me pull up the relative.
You know who I got at center, and I still might do this. I might just say this is what I'm doing, Nick. With the next pick is Bortolini is still way down on this board at center, and he had like an historically good testing. He would have placed with the defensive backs at center if you took his L cone and his shuttle. People call it 3 cone. I still call it L cone from way back. L cone and 3 cone is the same thing. It's set up at an L. It's 3 cones set up in an L shape on a right angle. So
Andrew Phillips, though, just the athletic testing, he was in the good enough category for the speed, 4.48, 157. So that's okay, but explosive, the vertical and the broad, 42-inch vertical, 11-foot 3-inch broad. And the only thing really that's standing out here that's not above average is the height, where he's 5'11". I don't mind that so much. So I like Phillips a lot.
Congress said, I've read Bortolini isn't a good enough center, though, so who cares how he tests? Well, if you've read it, then it must be true. You can watch. I put his video up on youtube.com/Scott Kennedy, where you are. It's recent. So if you go to videos and look recent, he's pretty good, man. He's pretty good. He hails up at the point of attack. His second level, his pulling, as you might expect with him. And if I can get him, what is that, 5th round? If I can get Bortolini in the 5th round, are you joking? Yes, please. So Bortolini can play. And if I can get him in the 5th round, I really, really like that pick. So I'd go that way for sure. And I probably will if it comes up again. For this one, 110, I like Michael Hall Jr. a lot. He is quick as a cat off the ball, little bit undersized, just a shade, but that's okay. I don't need him right away. He's a backup coming in, and I could bring him in on 3rd downs and use his quickness and drop him inside. So I'm going Michael Hall with this pick at pick 110. Michael Hall, Ohio State. And there's Christian Jones still sitting there at tackle. I could go another tight end. There's Theo Johnson, who also really went. Michael Lewitzki says, I like tortellini. Yeah, me too. Spinach and cheese. I'm a vegetarian. The spinach and cheese tortellini. Yes, please. Theo Johnson, there's not a bad pick. You could use another tight end. And speaking of testing, his video, he was a Senior Bowl guy too. His video's on the page. And his testing number was fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. Like that pick. That becomes a best player available type of guy right there at tight end. Tyler Davis isn't bad.
Wingo had a good combine
with that guy with the previous pick. Joe Milton, if you wanted to get your flyer here, we're in the 5th round.
Yep.
Still might be one early for me. Yeah, it's kind of coming down to, as I scroll down here within the next 20 picks, I might go Theo Johnson on this one.
He's going to go top 80. What do you know about tight ends? There is no position in football that is as correlated to take the big guy who runs fast, and you're probably going to be okay. Teams in college really don't know how to use and implement the tight end and develop them unless your name is University of Iowa. And I just did not love the power spread usage that they had for Theo Johnson, but they trusted him. They used him all over, and he tested like an absolute freak. So take the big guy who can run fast. What?
Are you talking about Theo?
Yes.
I'm taking Theo here.
Yeah, he's not going to be here.
Becomes another best player available, and it does fit a need. Yeah. He does fit a need there. Now that you've cut Jonnu Smith, you need another tight end. I like Kamani Vidal at 181. I don't think I need another running back. I don't need to use a draft pick on a running back anyway. I'll wait to see which one of these 1,500-yard college rushers doesn't get drafted at all, and then I'll get on the phone with them and try and get him as a UDFA. And this is the point. I bet he's gone now. If I go center, I waited one too long to get interior offensive lineman. Oh, there's Tanner Bortolini at 210. I'm taking him now.
Yeah, just take him.
I'm taking him now. Again, check out his video. His numbers, he's the best. He tested better, actually. He set the record for either El Cone or shuttle or both for interior offensive linemen. And he's the best interior offensive lineman tester since Travis Kelce. Jason Kelce. And watch this video. He can play a little bit. Definitely worth where are we now? In the 5th that I just took him? Yeah, that's worth it. That's good value here. 201, we're still looking at basically best player available as you get down into this range. I could go with another corner. If Johnny Dixon can play, I could use a special teams guy.
I like Jaylen Ford a lot. I know we've taken him a lot, but he's big and he's
because we could go linebacker too. There's no guarantee where you need another linebacker in there too. I'm absolutely
I like Ford
with that one.
I watched a lot of Texas this year, so maybe I'm biased towards that. But I think there's not many linebackers anymore. This is the lightest linebacker class ever, I think, if we looking back at the last 10 seasons. And Ford came in, let me see what the size. I mean, he's listed, gosh, where is it? It's the great live TV here. I live television. He's about 240, 250. So, I mean, he's actually got some size to him. So, yeah, 240. I mean, that's massive compared to what the normal class is. So, I like getting a guy with a little size there.
To close this out here, I already took a center, but Kingsley Eguakon from Florida, he can play a little bit. But that's not a position I don't need another center there. If they miss, it's a wasted pick. I'd rather go maybe take a guy on a developmental pick like Cedric Johnson at edge. See what he can do. He can't be any worse than the third you spent on D'Angelo Malone at this point. You've gotten virtually nothing out of him. So I'm going to go Cedric Malone. I lost him already.
What about Tyler? What about space isn't real guy? Is that too much of a weirdness for you? Tyler Owens he had 11'2" broad jump and like one of the best testers of all time at the safety position. He? Right there.
Oh, it's safety? Yeah, I could use a safety. That's fine. And then you should have a special teams demon. That's the good thing about taking defensive backs and running backs late or even wide receivers, but typically, the defensive backs are a little meaner, a little more physical. I can get a special teams player out of this. So I would go, that's fine with me. Get my safety there.
Yeah, Tyler Owens, 6'2", 216 pounds, vertical of 41 inches, broad jump of 12 foot 2 inches, Scott. The 100th or the first, whatever the best percentile is possible. So I don't know. He's I don't know if you saw his interview. That might turn off some teams because he talked about space being a mirage or something. I don't know. It was bizarre.
A lot of picks. There's a chance to really add to this team in the draft.
And then you imagine Kirk Cousins on that.
Get rid of Grant. Then Roderick, I think Grant's contract is guaranteed. It's guaranteed because he's a rookie. But let me see what his overall numbers are. He might have trouble making the team this year. His dead cap is just $800,000. You save $3 million by moving on from Richie Grant. I can get a safety for $3 million.
Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be a saturated safety market this season.
Yeah, I can get a good safety for $3 million, and I can save $3 million with Richie Grant. And Richie Grant hasn't been a good safety.
Yeah,
plain and simply, has been a disappointment.
The
they don't like our picks. I don't care.
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
I'm going to save this one, and we'll go back and see where these guys get drafted and see how close we were. So, addressed edge right off the bat. Dallas Turner, Jared Verse was available. I could go either way there and be pretty happy with it. And Xavier Worthy, wide receiver. That's a wide receiver 2 3 is a need for sure. I think they're going to bring in several new wide receivers. This is a guy that was very productive at Texas and then is a speed demon. Patrick Paul, developmental left tackle. Andrew Phillips, get your cornerback number 2 to compete right there. I'm addressing that need in free agency too. Michael Hall Jr., I like him a lot. Theo Johnson, really, really good tight end, fits a need. Tanner Bortolini, you're running out of time on Drew Dahlman. I think he might be a free agent after this year. Let me see on him. I think he's in the last year of his contract too. And right now he is in the last year of his contract. His salary escalated up from $9 million to $3 million this year in the final year, but he's a free agent after this year. And Bortolini is a guy that you could maybe groom to take over. If you like what you see, it gives you options. I like options. Jalen Ford, inside linebacker, some depth there, and then possibly some more help at safety / special teams guy. See if you make the team. Tyler Owens. Like this draft. Period. What are you guys talking about here? Conga Hydra in here. This is Russ gets $45 million next year too. No, he doesn't. He's as far as the cash payments, he's done. That's why they made this move, so they didn't have to give him the $37 million guaranteed base salary in 2025. So he gets $39 million from the Broncos this year, and then they're done paying him. They take another dead cap hit in 2025 for money they've already paid him. But Russ is the cash payment is done in 2024, and he will have walked off with about $150 million for 2 years of work. So Not bad work if you can get it. Not bad work. Boney's Bluff Gaming says, so do y'all think Kirk Cousins makes us a Super Bowl contender? No, I don't. I don't think there's a quarterback available that makes a Falcons a Super Bowl contender that would put them in the top 5 in the NFC. If we come out with now you never know what's going to happen. If you were to come up with Super Bowl odds, there isn't a quarterback available that puts them in the top 5. Now, is there somebody that you could draft that maybe puts them in the top 5 in 3 years? Maybe. Is Kirk Cousins going to be that guy in 3 years? No. So there's the argument, I think, probably as much as anything against Kirk Cousins, Nick, is you might get the instant gratification, that dopamine hit right away, but you're not really a Super Bowl contender right now. But what kind of wins, incremental wins, are you looking for? Can you get close? And then maybe there's a Kirk Cousins available in 2025 that you spend a lot of money on too? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting. And I saw the question, does Kirk Cousins make you from Boney Bluff Gaming, does Kirk Cousins make you a Super Bowl contender? I think the path in the NFC is open enough that you add a top 10 quarterback, and you're very fortunate to be in the NFC, and especially the NFC South, but you win your division and you're there with the, let's say, 2 or 3 seed. Absolutely. Your pathway is not crazy. You don't have to jump Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud, the Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. You have to jump Prescott and Hurts. Okay, fine. So I think actually he does, because your pathway is not unbelievable.
And Conga Hydra, just to be clear on this, there is an $85 million dead cap hit from what I've read, but there I go reading again. Yeah, you got to be careful with that. The dead cap hit is for money that's already been paid. So if I sign you to a 10-year contract, Conga Hydra, and I give you a $100 million signing bonus, that gives you an initial cap hit of $10 million. Your cap hit in year 1 of that contract is $10 million. Now there's $90 million left over. Okay? I can cut you after year 1. My dead cap hit is $90 million, but I don't owe you another penny. I've already paid you $100 million. So the dead cap hit is based on guaranteed money, which this year is $39 million, and the prorated version of the signing bonus that he has already gotten. He's already been paid that money. So he's done getting cash after the $39 million for 2024. The dead cap hit is based on the signing bonus from the contract extension he signed that hasn't even started yet. It was an awful mistake by the Denver Broncos. So it is an $85 million cap hit across 2 years for the Denver Broncos. But the reason why they did that, the reason why they're cutting him now, is because they don't want to pay him another $40 million in guaranteed salary in 2025. And it actually knocks their cap hit down from $55 million to like $32 million in 2025. But he's done with the cash payments after this year. So excellent show, everybody. We went 82 minutes. So glad everybody's here and our numbers are still good. I want to say thank you to our Super Chat superstars that have come in and helped support the show, like Darius Mayfield, like Corey Carter, like BBG, Oblivion Empire, Gary Palmer, Marco Z, Rusty Moore. Look at all this color. Greg Elrod. I love these numbers, y'all. It's so humbling. Red Swarm, Edward Brown, and before we even hit go live, Michael Sunrise Ronquillo coming in because he's as dependable as the sunrise with $100 super chat. So thank you so much, everybody. Nick, this is the last time we'll be on a Falcons podcast before the contact period opens in free agency. Any last words before we get out of here?
Buckle up. It's going to be fun, and keep an open mind, and whatever happens, you're going to be a better team. You got money, you got flexibility, and you're going to move on from arguably the worst quarterback room in football last season in the NFL. So a lot of viable options, and I'm excited to see what this team looks like as we hurdle towards the offseason in the draft.
Keith, I see you over there on Facebook. Says, can you show the Broncos in your mock? Actually, yeah, I can. Now that I think about it,
I think only the first round pick.
Yeah, you'll only see that one. It was at 12. They took Jayden Daniels. At quarterback fell. That's why I don't like doing the PFF one, because Jayden Daniels isn't going to be available at 12. They got Jayden Daniels at 12. That would be spectacular if you're a Denver Broncos fan. Speaking of which, if you want to come talk more, we'll probably do a Broncos mock draft. And that was actually one of the things I wanted to do, Nick. Let's negotiate. Let's do that tomorrow. When we do our mock draft, you want to get up to 8. And I'll play the Falcons. We'll talk about what it's going to cost. There's a player I might want off of the Denver Broncos thrown in there. So we'll hit on that tomorrow. You can find us youtube.com/MHH. I will be back on Friday, these channels as well. We'll start going through some of these options, maybe the quarterback carousel. We'll see if anything else is broken. We'll see what happens between now and then. So make sure you come and join us. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We've had a hell of a fun show today, and we're glad we had that ride with you. If you're listening after the fact, Spotify, Apple Pods, leave us a review. Helps us out a ton. Spotify is actually higher on reviews now than Apple Pods. Thank you, Spotify. Appreciate you, Spotify listeners, coming in. On that note, Nick, had a lot of fun today. We're going to get out of here. Y'all have a great rest of the week.
Yeah. Peace. Have a good one.